Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us to light. From death, lead us to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning, everybody. So today is going to be a talk. It's going to be a biography. Excuse me. So today we'll be talking about Swami Abhedananda, who served and came to Sri Ramakrishna right towards the end of the last couple years of Ramakrishna's life. Before I begin, I just want to say that it's important for us to add into our own lives the ideas, the knowledge, the teachings, not only of Sri Ramakrishna, but of those he hand-trained to teach us later on, to teach the generations that would follow. And it can really help us to deepen our perspective of creating our own spiritual life, our own spiritual wisdom, by hearing the lives of these saints, these teachers, world teachers. It's always inspiring. And it will set a new trend in our mind to remember how important it is to add higher thinking, spiritual thinking. By reading the lives of saints, our mind will be lifted. By hearing about their lives, their activities, of those whose lives were dedicated to the ultimate truth. There's something contagious in that. Hopefully our minds will resonate. So I want you all to make a note that some of the classes that come here that Swami Satyamayananda is giving on the householdy disciples of Ramakrishna, they're very inspirational and they're very relevant to developing spiritual life in a deeper way. It's important, as long as we can still wake up every morning and breathe and walk and talk and think clearly, we still have the opportunity to succeed, to deepen our spiritual life and to succeed. Every single day is another opportunity. And we have to try to remember that it's an opportunity to go deeper with our spiritual life. We don't have to go deeper in our worldly life, our workaday life. That's a natural thing for most of us. We spend 90% or more of our mind with thoughts about things of the world and what we will be doing. So these kinds of talks are very helpful for most of us. So that, that is my prelude. Swami Abhedananda, who was known as Kali, spent the very beginning of his life, he wasted no time. There's some interesting things that I want to just say about Kali. But by the way, I'm using Swami Chaitanananda's book, God Lived with Them. And he has put in, I think there's 16 disciples, monastic disciples. These are the monastic disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Chaitanananda has done us a wonderful service by going through so many sources that we don't even know exist and putting them in about 45 pages in this case. And very little of that I'm going to be able to share with you, but I'm going to share what I find quite interesting. So Kali is the name of the Divine Mother. And Kali's given name, his family name, is Kali Prasad. There's a reason. It's not by chance or mistake. So Kali Prasad Chandra, okay, is his name. And his birthday, I guess this is our calendar, is right around this time of year. He was born on October 2nd in 1866. An 1866 birthday for the disciples of Ramakrishna puts Kali as one of the younger of the boys. He was a boy. He was 17 years old when he came to Sri Ramakrishna. And his name, Kali Prasad, we all know what prasad is, the offerings from worship. His name is in response to a boon by his very devout mother, who had lost her first 5 children at early ages. And before Kali was born, she went and she prayed to Divine Mother Kali for a son. And when this son was born, he was named Kali Prasad, the gift of Mother Kali. We will see that he was indeed quite special. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time in his early years, but similarly to the life of Swami Vivekananda, Kali Prasad was something beyond a prodigy. His father taught English school at, I believe it was called the Oriental Seminary in Calcutta. So it was an English so his father was a teacher and a scholar. And any boy born into a family like that is going to be getting educated early on, as you might expect. So from a very early age, like today's standards, 5 years old, he was sent to a special nursery school. And they actually study and read stories from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and the Hitopadesha. Some of the Hitopadesha stories they're animal fables that have moral and ethical values. So what we call Aesop's fables here, you will find huge similarities. So at 5 years old, he's being steeped in these highest morals and ethics. So I'm going to be scanning and reading. You'll have to forgive me for that. So we also are told that even as a young boy, Kali Prasad would swim in the Ganges regularly for exercise. Now that's usually fun, And he would exercise at a neighborhood gymnasium. And we're talking around 10 years old and so very young. He was taking care of his physical health. And, but this is an interesting thing. For such a young boy, he happened to read, and this is noted here, Herbert Spencer. So in Calcutta of those days, many of the European thinkers, like Spencer, they were studied, particularly in English-speaking schools, which is what the English medium school is what his father had him in his own school. He read Herbert Spencer's book entitled Education, where Spencer claims that those who do vigorous physical exercise do so at the expense of their brains. He stopped going to the gymnasium. Too much Rajaguna? I don't know what Spencer figured out, but he backed off on just working for muscles and good health. There's a little incident here where he was in school, and already the teachers were quite impressed with this young Kali and his ability to think on his own. So here we have one day, the teacher praised his skill and prophesied a bright future for him. But one day Kali told the teacher, oh, this was an art teacher, I'm sorry, yeah, drawing class. He seemed to be gifted there too. And his art teacher said, you have the gift of a painter, you could become a great painter. But Kali told the teacher he would not come back to the drawing class anymore because he had decided to become a philosopher. Kali's teacher tried to convince him that it was better to be a painter than a philosopher. But Kali's reply was this: no, sir. A painter studies the surface of things, but a philosopher goes below the surface and studies the causes of things. I think we're talking about a 10 or a 12-year-old, if you can believe it. So I want to be a philosopher. We don't have an age on that, but he was barely a teenager. And he's daring to tell his art teacher to disagree. Kali was outspoken and quite confident in what he felt was right and true. So there's some interesting things I'm going to just read for you here. Kali had a remarkable memory and keen power of concentration. He learned to fish, shop, cook, work with wood, garden, bind books, and so on. So he was handy in many different ways. And by the way, I'm going to take an aside because this chapter starts with a very interesting aside from Swami Vivekananda. And Kali had met Sri Ramakrishna because he was serving in the Kasipur garden house. Actually, whether it was I think it was Kasipur, not Shyampukur. There were some ponds there. They were stocked with fish, lots of fish. And Kali got a reputation amongst the other boys. He would fish with a fishing pole and pull out fish, and they would have fish. And in the evening when Kali was serving Sri Ramakrishna, he was asked by him, "Is it true that you have been catching many fish with a fishing rod?" "Yes, sir," answered Kali. The master said, "It is a sin to catch a fish with a fishing rod, for thereby living beings are killed." Immediately, Kali wanted to defend himself. And We're at least 17 years old in this. In defense, Kali quoted from the Gita, high philosophy. He who thinks that the self is the slayer, as well as he who thinks that the self is slain, is ignorant. For the self neither slays nor is slain. And he further added, so why should it be a sin to catch fish? What do you suppose was Ramakrishna's response? This is an unusual one. He was a loving teacher for Kali. Ramakrishna smiled and tried to make Kali understand through various arguments. He said, when a person attains true knowledge, and when Ramakrishna uses language like this, true knowledge means knowledge of God, a higher knowledge, and which, when that's attained, the world we see is viewed very differently in our place in the world. So he says, when a person attains true knowledge, he does not take a false step. Suddenly the master began coughing, and there was a trace of blood in his sputum. He had his throat cancer by that time. Frightened by this, Kali told him, sir, talking will aggravate your cancer. Please do not talk anymore. But the master went on and said, I consider you to be one of the most intelligent of the boys. You will understand if you meditate on what I have said. I'm not going to go into the details, but that's exactly what happened. 3 days later, Kali came back, and he understood that by tricking fish, by hiding bait in a hook and all, he saw that's a deceitful action. And a person with purity, with no ill wish for any living being, the kind of compassion Buddha had, we saw, for creatures and animals. He understood perfectly. So from the very beginning, and we're going to find more with Kali's earlier visits with Sri Ramakrishna, how he sized Kali up. So already we know he's very smart, he's very bright, he's bold, he's outspoken. So as probably a high school age, maybe we're talking 15, 16 years old, maybe even 17 then, Kali would go and attend scholarly lectures on the scriptures of Hinduism. And there's a famous pundit, they would be speaking, there's an Albert Hall in Calcutta also, there's not just in London, and he regularly went to those. We've got to remember, we're talking about a young man who, when he had a desire to learn something new, he seemed to have a craving for knowledge in all areas. His interest went into the world, but on Ramakrishna's, well, we'll find out a little later how Ramakrishna provided new vector force for Kali, and to learn to discriminate between spiritual knowledge and the worldly knowledge, street smarts, we'll just call it. These two are very, very different. And the one doesn't usually abide with the other very well. So he in attending those lectures given by a famous pundit, Kali had gone to the speaker and told him he wanted to learn the yoga aphorisms of Patanjali. Perhaps some of you are a little bit familiar with that. So that is what that's getting into the area of the preconditions for meditation, for going deep within the mind, rather than learning about things in the world. And that speaker, that Pandit, directed him to another teacher, a renowned scholar in Calcutta. Kali's desire to learn the scriptures was phenomenal. This is Swami Chaitanyananda's writings. He went to the teacher, Vedanta Vagish is his name, who was then translating Patanjali's yoga aphorisms from Sanskrit into Bengali. Vedanta Vagish told Kali that he had no spare time to teach him the Yoga Sutras, but he could explain the sutras to him in the morning while his attendant gave him an oil massage before his daily bath. So this Pandit was willing to let Kali come and he would just talk to him. Kali began to visit the Pandit every morning while he read the aphorisms. The Pandit would explain them. So Kali would read the aphorisms, the Pandit would give him the deeper explanations. Thus he completed his study of yoga philosophy. Look how Kali found a teacher to learn, someone who had spent his life studying these scriptures, to go to the depth at the very beginning. Again, we're talking about someone who's maybe 17 years old. Okay. Here we say, Kali then bought a copy of Shiva Samhita, and he learned the disciplines of Hatha Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, Pranayama, breathing, and Raja Yoga. That's a lot. Most people can't learn any one of those or practice them in their life, but he consumed that all. He had a desire to be absorbed in samadhi. Okay, this is something I've not heard of. These are Sanskrit words. Through Kechari Mudra, a special technique of Hatha Yoga, but he was told not to practice any of the methods described in Hatha Yoga, and that prescription still goes, without being properly instructed by a competent yogi. So, his study of the scriptures did not quench his thirst for more knowledge of the scriptures. He desperately searched for a spiritual teacher. And in June of 1884, Kali went to Dakshineshwar and met Sri Ramakrishna. So one of the things we are fortunate to have, Kali Prasad is the only one of the monastic disciples who he wrote an autobiography. And later on you may have an understanding of how that came about. That came much later, but he had written about his experiences. So he describes in that book, and these are outtakes from Kali's own writings, okay? So he's speaking in the first person. I'm going to read from there. I became restless to find a guru who could teach me yoga. I confided my desire to my classmate, Yajneshwar Bhattacharya, who was very fond of me. Yajneshwar told me, I know a wonderful yogi. His name is Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and he lives in Rani Rasmani's temple garden in Dakshineshwar. He has no pretensions. That's an important accolade to follow up. There's nothing pretentious about the way Sri Ramakrishna behaved with the devotees. Everything was genuine from the heart. There was no show there. It was all, sometimes there was a show, so to speak, show of ecstasy, but it was not a put-on show. It was all genuine. So in this world of so many yogis today, they're on the internet, cameras are on them, and they're giving quite a show. So this is what his friend told him. He has no pretensions, and many respectable people visit him, and he sometimes comes to Calcutta. Perhaps he can fulfill your desire to learn yoga. Kali says, my joy knew no bounds when I heard this from Yogeshwar, and I at once resolved to meet Sri Ramakrishna, though I had no idea where Dakshineshwar was. Because in those days, how Calcutta is now, it's a huge, huge city, but Dakshineshwar was a little remote village north, many miles. Many miles means 15, 20 miles away. And we're still in the 1800s. Kids didn't have cars then. And they went just about everywhere barefoot. So even well-bred children like Kali Prasad. So one Sunday morning, it's interesting, I started for Dakshineshwar by asking directions from people on the street. I crossed the Bagh Bazar Bridge and walked north on the Barakpur Trunk Road. It was quite a distance. I then asked a person on the road about the temple garden of Dakshineshwar. He told me, you have gone the wrong way. The Kali temple is on the bank of the Ganges. Finally, I reached the temple garden at 11 o'clock. I think he'd left very early in the morning. When I asked about Sri Ramakrishna, a temple worker informed me that he had gone to Calcutta that morning, where Kali had come from. I was exhausted, having walked all that way barefoot in the sun. Disappointed, I sat on the steps of Sri Ramakrishna's northern veranda. This is Sri Ramakrishna's room is there, and he had a veranda there, and wondered how I could ever go back to Calcutta. He hadn't made that plan. He came to see a holy man. I was hungry and thirsty. I was dead tired. I had no money. I had not informed my family as to where I was going. I had no acquaintance in Dakshineshwar. And moreover, I had no strength to walk back to Calcutta. I began to cry. Just then, another young man arrived, excuse me, and asked me about Sri Ramakrishna, and I told him that he had gone to Calcutta. The young man was also disappointed. We then talked and got acquainted with each other. On inquiry, I learned that his name was Sashi. So Sashi Bhushan later became Swami Ramakrishnananda, Sashi. So, anyway, he was similar age probably. He advised me about my circumstances, meaning he's too far to get back home, and he's dead tired, he has no money, he's tired and hungry. So he advised me about my circumstances, saying, have a bath in the Ganges, take prasad. From the temple you can get some prasad. Take prasad, and then return to Calcutta after a rest. Later in the afternoon, when I expressed my intention to return to Calcutta, Sashi told me, you should not return home without seeing the master. Is there any certainty that such an opportunity will come again in your lifetime? That's what Sashi told him in your lifetime. Since you have come to see him with so much difficulty, it is better for you to wait. He goes on, I knew my parents would be worried about me because I had not told them where I was going. Understanding how I felt, Sashi said to me, look, brother, I have also come here without informing my parents. Don't worry. We shall stay here tonight. The master will positively return from Calcutta by late evening, as he never stays overnight at any devotee's house in Calcutta. I'm going to continue reading. This is all out of his biography. It's very interesting. Sashi showed me around and in the evening took me to the Kali temple to attend the Vesper service. That's the evening arati. I felt tremendous peace and joy. Ramlal, the master's nephew, gave us some luchis and sweets for refreshments. We waited on the northern veranda for the master's arrival. Finally, a horse carriage arrived at the northeastern corner of the master's room. Sashi and Ramlal went to receive the master. My heart was beating hard. I stood where I was, motionless. After getting down from the carriage, Sri Ramakrishna said, Kali, 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 entered his room and sat on his small cot. It's going to get interesting. Ramlal and Sashi informed the master about me while I waited on the veranda. Then Ramlal came out and said the master was waiting for me. I entered the room and bowed down to him. The master asked about me, and I told him, I have a desire to learn yoga. Will you kindly teach me? The master kept quiet for a while and then said, it is a good sign that you have a desire to learn yoga at this young age. Then he says, and this is stunning, you were a yogi in your previous life. A little was left for perfection. This will be your last birth. Yes, I shall teach you yoga. Rest tonight and come to me again tomorrow morning. Look at our time here. This is the first meeting in search of a guru and being told, you were a yogi before in a previous life, just short of reaching that goal, that knowledge of God. That knowledge which, if it is reached, you won't be reborn here. No more births. But he was here for a purpose, as we'll see. Ramakrishna not only knew who was this Kali, but knew his past as well. This is the difference between going to a regular holy man or finding the incarnation of the age as your first visit in your search. How lucky. But there's no luck involved. It is all, excuse me, all part of a bigger plan. I'm going to continue the next morning. The next morning, Ramlal, excuse me, told me the master was waiting to see me. Entering his room, I bowed down to him. Then he asked me what I was studying, and I replied, I am now in the entrance class, so 10th grade. That's higher secondary in the Indian British school system. I am now in the entrance class. Very good, said the master. Then he took me to the northern veranda. He asked me to sit on a cot. When I was seated in the lotus posture, the master asked me to stick out my tongue. As soon as I did that, he wrote a mantram on it with the middle finger of his right hand and advised me to meditate on Kali, the Divine Mother. I did what he said. Gradually, I lost outer consciousness and sat in deep meditation. I felt an unspeakable joy within. I don't know how long I stayed in that condition. After some time, the master touched my chest and brought me back to outer consciousness. He then asked me what had happened, and I told him about my blissful experience during meditation. He was very pleased. Afterwards, the master instructed me on meditation and sang these lines of a mystical song. These are the lines. When will you sleep in the divine chamber with the clean, or the good, and the unclean, evil? So when will you sleep in the divine chamber with the clean and the unclean? When these two wives are friendly with each other, Mother Shyama will be within your reach. This is Kali speaking more. The master further told me, excuse me, to meditate every morning and again at night, and to report to him my visions and spiritual experiences. The master then asked me to go to the Kali temple and meditate there. This is his first visit to the master. We're still in the same day, and this is happening. When I returned from the temple, the master gave me prasad and asked me to visit him again. He even offered to provide my fare if I could not get it from home. In the meantime, a devotee had arrived by carriage from Calcutta to visit the master, and the master asked me to return home with that devotee. Got a free ride. How convenient. On my way home, I thought of the master's overwhelming love and compassion. So here we get the first visit to that saint of Dakshineshwar. This is a little aside. When we study or read the lives of, be it the householder disciples, those classes that Swami Vivekananda gives on Friday night, or the monastic disciples, either way, what you're going to be reading and studying and learning are how Sri Ramakrishna taught. And with each person, it was an individualized thing. There's no formula because everybody has their own personalized background, their understanding, and it needs to be customized. So don't think that you need to find a teacher. They'll ask you to stick out your tongue and a mantra will be written on and you will meditate and go into losing all worldly consciousness for a while. That isn't actually a very common experience. It is one of the most astounding things to find that it can happen to anybody at all. But he's gone to the master. And the master is no ordinary being. An avatar has that ability to bestow spirituality with a touch, with a glance, just being in the same room with such a being can transform and has transformed the lives of many. I'm going to just, we made it through bookmark 1. I'm going to read a little more. Mostly I'm reading to you because it's further, to be able to read, get a touch of, as it were, the biography, the diary of such a lucky individual. So is a special treat. So he's saying from his biography, he's saying, on my way back home, I thought of the Master's overwhelming love and compassion. So, meanwhile, while Kali was away, without telling his parents, we hear what was going on at home. A great commotion erupted at Kali's home when he had not returned by Sunday afternoon. His mother cried, thinking that he might have drowned in the Ganges. His parents searched for him in every possible location. At last his mother remembered that recently Kali had inquired about the temple garden of Rani Rasmani, so she asked her husband to go to Dakshineshwar. The next morning, her husband reached Dakshineshwar and learned from Sri Ramakrishna that Kali had already left for Calcutta. Then, before Kali's father left, smart guy that he was, he said to Ramakrishna, "Sir, Kali is my son. Please advise him to get married and become a householder." So he knows that Kali was listening to Ramakrishna. He wanted to lock in his dutiful son to take care of the parents later in life, yes? Because that's what a householder's duty is. The son takes care of the father. Ramakrishna's answer, here it is. Your son is a great yogi, replied Ramakrishna. He goes on to say, as he does not want to get married, what good would it be to force him to marry? Kali's father says, it is the supreme dharma for a son to serve his parents. Ramakrishna kept quiet. With great relief, his father returned home. We are getting towards the end of our time. I'm going to leave you in that suspense, and I will encourage you, if you haven't been encouraged yet, as I do in pretty much every Sunday talk I give, don't wait for me to read you the whole book. These copies are available, if not in our bookstore. We can read about the householder disciples. We can read about the monastic disciples. If we spend a few minutes reading these books, guess where your mind will not be set on? Your daily worldly life and all the busyness. You will be transported, but to a very different kind of place. Not like a sitcom movie or something watching TV. This is this is a direction that can change and give new opportunity to give us a life with a spiritual direction. Usually it comes little by little. I'll conclude with that. This is the kind of thing I'm not going to take any questions because it's just more of an informational talk. I'll read some announcements that we have here for some of our activities. So, live and in person here on Wednesday night, Swami Vivekananda will give a class on the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. On Friday, that's at 7 p.m. Friday evening, he gives, right now, he's been giving a series of talks on the householder devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. And this Friday, he'll begin with Girish Ghosh, which might interest many householders. Girish was a very spicy character and a very accomplished worldly man who later more than surrendered at the feet of Ramakrishna. A very unique case. So Saturday, this following Saturday, is the retreat, the meditation retreat with Swami Vivekananda up at Tapovan. That begins at 1 p.m. Please try to show, if you come, please show up on time. Don't come on what we call Indian time. It just kind of delays things, and people would be walking in after all the introductory things are done. So that will go from 1 to about 4 or 5. And particularly on the nice days, if you've never been to Tapovan retreat, it's a beautiful area. It's a beautiful set. We have a temple, a beautiful lake. There's gardens there. And if it's not raining, it's pretty nice just to walk around or sit quietly here and there. Okay, next Sunday at this time, the talk will be Reincarnation, Fact or Fiction. Swami Vivekananda will talk about that. We have a program for younger children, I think maybe
4 to 14.
4, goes down to 4 to 14. If you have younger children, come and let us know in ahead so that our teachers will know what to expect, but they will be taught according to their age level there. These, usually through reading stories, like the Hitopadesha. And then next Sunday, is there a Ramnam next Sunday? Okay. Yeah, okay. So that following Sunday is Ramnam. Okay. I will, with all that being said, I'll conclude with a chant here. The same chant I began with. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us to light. From death, lead us to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace.